So like a few weeks ago or something, who cares really, a leaked build of Payday 3 was posted online, and it's pretty good. I don't get why the team switched to Source Engine halfway through development and then back to Unreal, but I guess it's newer than Diesel, so yeah. It has these guns and stuff, and everything is taken from Payday 2. The HUD is kind of small in the corner, but yeah, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Well, with that out of the way, a few weeks ago, a major discovery was made for Payday 3. A playable build of Payday 3 from 2020 was leaked online and revealed the state of the game about 4 years ago. Showing a game that resembled much more Payday 2, with a functioning server browser, regenerating armor, a familiar control scheme, than the game that released in 2023 with the same name. So, let's get into it. First off, if you want to download this version of the game, here's a quick tutorial on how I did it. Follow the link in the description to the archive.org page and download the RAR version right here. It's only 2 gigabytes. From there, open it up with WinRAR and open the executable shooter game. And boom, Payday 3 circa 2020. Once in the game, believe it or not, there's a server browser where you can see games being hosted in real time, a feature that probably won't be in this game until the end of this year, but I digress. Now, let's deal with the gameplay, and it's pretty good. The gameplay is lifted directly from Payday 2 with regenerating armor. I think I've made my position on the armor system of Payday 3 clear in my past videos, but I'll make this brief. I love this system so much more than the current system. This plays like classic Payday and builds off the continuity from Payday the Heist and Payday 2. Regenerating armor allows you to be aggressive and defensive depending on your given situation. I would happily see this in Payday 3 over the new armor system, with appropriate changes to armor bags so that they're not just snapped out of existence. Maybe an armor overcharge like Adrenaline that doesn't fade? I don't know. But you also get 6 grenades this time around, and 3 flashbangs. You can't switch on the fly with them, only when you run out of frags you get flashes, but the flashes work on dozers in this one. Not to mention that, which lets you mark and shoot without moving my finger off the left click by default. Oh, and one more thing about dozers in this. I love them. They work basically how they did in Payday the Heist, a heavy enemy that must be respected in close quarters, but can be soloed with distance. The dozer in Payday 3, in my opinion, is a bit too tanky, and the auto drum shotgun by default is a bit much. Seeing this good old green boy come up with a pump, there's just a feeling there, man. It's hard to explain. Gunplay is mostly the same in current Payday 3, however, rifles aren't perfectly accurate on the first shot, only pistols are. There's a lot more active spread when not aiming down sights. Model-wise, it's a Car 4, however the quad rail grip is wrapped in covers like the Payday the Heist Car 4, and it comes default with a red dot. The Signature 40 also comes with the obelisk suppressor by default, so not much new there, other than it spits out rifle casings. Nades and most of the rest of the visuals are either very bare bone or taken from Payday 2 like the player models. Drills, however, are very different in this build of the game. They work off a system of built-up heat and material they're drilling through, and come up with the option to speed up drilling at the cost of more heat, with the only way to cool down the drill being to turn it off entirely. The adjustment mechanic is still there, and as in regular Payday 3, but this time it's to switch materials and not just prevent a breakdown. I like and dislike this system. It feels great having a more hands-on system that lets you feel like you're an active element to the drilling process. However, it can also feel like babysitting a machine that you will have to stop all progress on for the sake of making a little bar go down. If there's any takeaway from this build and its drilling, getting rid of the pause mechanic was a good choice. If it were up to me on how to make drilling more interactive, I would bring in technician skills and make it so the drill can be left alone like the other games. However, in exchange for actively working on the drill, players can speed up the progress by switching its settings and making adjustments, like how we see the gang use drills in live action, maybe some animations for cooling off the bit with water like in Heat, having to set the drill for optimal speed for different material. It's a thin line between a fun minigame for faster drills and a pain-in-the-ass babysitting simulator for a little reward. I'm not an expert. After all, changes like this were left on the cutting room floor for a reason. but little more than just default Payday drilling would be appreciated. Real quick before I talk about the maps this build has to offer, can we just talk about the music in this version? Like, listen to the menu music. It feels so seedy and malicious. I love it. Feels very Payday to me. Something I can still say about the current music, but this, along with the new heist track, just hit with a different energy and tempo that feels a lot more like OG Payday rather than what we got in 3. I like the music in 3 well enough, but this just has a hyperactivity and franticness that really encompasses the feeling of a criminal shootout. A theme that Payday 1 and 2 nailed, but something that Payday 3 missed for me personally, outside a few tracks like No Rest for the Wicked. All the others just lack a sort of energy, I guess. I don't know, I'm not a composer. I like the tracks from Payday 3, but this is my favorite one. But we'll talk about that later, so keep watching. Now, on to the maps. There's not a lot to say about the maps. There's only 3 you can take anything away from. 80% of the maps in this build are just for testing features. There's a cool one that lets you test weapon sounds, which honestly I kind of prefer compared to how the sounds work in the game now, especially how you can hear the sonic crack in some of the outdoor zones, and just how bassy the sounds are regularly. The rest of the test maps haven't changed a lot compared to how they are in Payday 3 now. You can take a look at them in this video by General McBadass. He did a great job showing them off, and if you want a good look, check it out. For the actual heists in this build, there's about 3. But we'll start off with Jewelry Store, which is a straight port from Payday 2. There's no interactable objects in it, the glass can't be broken either, the civs don't care unless you shout at them. The lighting for the whole thing is the Unreal preset, and honestly, it has a kind of charm to it that I'm into. But then again, I'm a filthy ARC player in my spare time. Interesting note though, when you go around the back of the store, you begin to notice that the map is a bit too big. And it was around this time that it clicked with me that Starbreeze said that the legacy heist had to be made from the ground up. While that may be true from a programming perspective, it's clear to me that the maps that we have just been ported from Payday 2, cleaned up for Payday 3, and are oversized because they didn't do any proper scaling. Cookoff being the most guilty of this. I can let it slide for the first couple, but for any other future legacy heists they need to be properly scaled. First World Bank and Diamond Heist would just feel uncanny when you're too small in them. The next heist, which is labeled as Stealth Prototype, is quite obviously an early version of No Rest for the Wicked. The exterior is virtually identical, excluding the lack of textures in the back alley with the escape van in it. The inside is where some real changes happen, with the second floor being expanded, the vault being exposed on the first floor, and there being a balcony and manager's office with a conference room attached. It being the stealth prototype, you'd be surprised for me to tell you that there's no pagers or even getting spotted by guards in this map. Hell, even gunfire doesn't set the alarm off. There's a way to play through loud in this heist, but the only way to do that is to let a camera spot you. So if you shoot them all out, no loud. But back to the objectives. It still requires getting to the roof to hack the alarm, but there's a little DNA from Golden Shark in this, having to go to another room to continue the hack. But in this, keycards are still only one use. The last objective is just remembering the right code and making off with a minimum of 3 bags of loot, with a total of 8 in the heist. Overall, it's a pretty interesting time capsule on how far this heist came from its first iteration in 2020, but there's one last heist we still have to talk about. Also, they play Razormind in this heist as the track. I didn't have a clever way of bringing it up during the heist, but I felt like it should be mentioned. Finally, the standout heist from this build, the Loud prototype. This heist may be the most straightforward bank robbery we have ever seen in this series, but even though that its purpose is to test out loud gameplay and a playable map, this is my favorite heist in Payday 3. Top 3, bare minimum. It's so straightforward, to the point, and full of personality thanks to the handler dialogue that it puts it so high up in my opinion. Which is now a good time to bring up that every heist in this game is narrated by Locke, and not Shade. In a developer livestream with Almir and Mio, they explained that since they didn't have the character of Shade invented yet, or knew who was replacing Locke as the handler, they just had Ian Russell record placeholder lines for the working build, and to be quite honest, this is my favorite use of Locke as a handler. When he first got introduced in Payday 2, Locke as a character was a bit goofy in my opinion. He was lighthearted and cracked jokes a lot more compared to Bane, and even Bane cracked more jokes in 2 compared to 1. But in this, Locke as a character is audibly focused on the mission and distant, almost cold to anything else in the mission. He's calculating and menacing in one performance. My favorite line from all of this is just his little lines letting you know an assault is starting. Just the quick, get your gloves on before the music kicks in is so cool to hear. The music for this heist doesn't have a definitive name from what I can tell, but this YouTube video just calls it Under Construction, so that's what I'm going to call it. And it's my favorite track from Payday 3. It's energetic, it has a great bass line, it's full of techno and guitar without sacrificing one for the other. It feels like it belongs happily with tracks from Payday 2 and Payday the Heist. There's not much else to say, so here's just my favorite part you can listen to. As for the heist itself, objective-wise it starts off with you spawning in an elevator and rewiring the electrical box to open it, where you play out the rest of the heist in loud only. There's only like 2 objectives: drill the safe and get the key card. After that you just punch in the code, toss in the bags, lift the spike strip, and leave. The whole layout reminds me of a mini First World Bank, but that's not a knock against it. That's still my favorite heist from Payday the Heist, next to No Mercy. But I think the main reason I like this heist so much, aside from snipers not being complete aids, is how simple and short it is. It reminds me of Harvest and Trustee on Payday 2, and I think that that's something that Payday 3 suffers from right now. A lack of simple, repeatable heists that can canonically happen multiple times to give you an in-lore reason that, yeah, this is just here for you to grind on. I would very much like to see this heist come into the game and its track. Throw on the extra bells and whistles if you really need to, but nothing beats a simple run and gun bank heist. Go in, set up the drill, get the money, get out. Simple as. Overall, this is a fun look into the past on what the dev team was up to back in 2020 when making this game. I'm not going to be hyperbolic and say that we lost Payday 3 in the years between this build and release, but I feel like the devs missed out on the fact that for the sake of giving Payday 3 its own gameplay identity with edge rush and grit and limited armor, they missed out on that regenerating armor and RPG-like skills are part of the Payday formula, along with the quality of life stuff that elevates that experience, like an in-universe server browser and role-playing elements like constantly shouting at anything that moves, even tied up civs. So yeah, that's about it. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment. Tell me what you think of the leaked build and what features from it you'd like to see in the main game. Personally, at a bare minimum, I like to see mark and ping on different keys and not on one command, but let me know what you think. That's all I got for you for now. See you guys. That's all I got for now. See you guys. Oh, and one last reason that this build is better than main Payday 3. In the main game, you can't get into the van. In this game, you can. I rest my case.